is actually the lift hill. The lift hill was actually halfway through the ride, not in the beginning, which is a unique thing for even 1920.
Wow.
So what it did is it pulled it up right here and turned around and then went down again, which is the outer ring that you see, which is the higher one, and then went in front of the dam and went up over the tracks, came straight, and came to the station. Then when the next gravity just pulled it right back down because it was going downhill. So it was a unique situation that this coaster's lift hill is actually in the middle of the ride instead of at the beginning.
There's only one lift hill?
There's only one lift hill. Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting.
So,
but nowadays you see so many lifts on.
Yeah. So, you know, a lot of the older pictures that you'll see in here, you know, this is, you know, Rocky Glen from the 1880s, late 1880s, 1900s,
okay.
yeah. Where that was the first coaster, which was just a figure-8 coaster, was up top. This one is actually the second one, which was a monstrosity for, you know, its age. And so we're going to walk near the dam, and that's another picture of it. As you can see, it goes around the dam.
Yep.
The dam is in much better shape. Obviously, back then it was well kept. You can see there's actually a walkway, if you will, above the dam where the water spills. That's long gone. It's been destroyed either by erosion or by time. So I tried to go down and find remains of it. I only found one pillar that's obviously man-made and probably was a part of that coaster, but it doesn't look like it could be moved, so it probably is a remnant of that coaster. On the left there, that's the $1 million coaster. So you can see it started halfway up the hill, so it didn't have a full-size lift hill, it only had a halfway lift hill. So that's what we're looking at coming around this corner right here. And there's some closer pictures. So I'm not sure if it's being sold anymore. He only had a limited run.
Probably find it on Amazon.
Yeah, you could probably find somebody. He has a little story in there, and that's how big it was the long way. There's actually let's find the other picture. This is a very unique picture. You're actually standing on top of the back of the coaster. You can see there's a gentleman standing on the deck right there. Now, as you can see, here's the lift hill halfway up, and these they don't look that steep, but when you look at pictures of it, you can see this is actually standing on top of the first drop.
And I think it was in our own backyard.
Yep. And it was the first drop was probably about right here.
You were on it?
Where we're looking at. It probably started right about here and started going up. But there's never really been anything in the wall to prove like exactly where it was.
Wow.
I know that the Dodgems building that was built was actually like on platform, so it actually did come out to about here. And the $1 million queue was actually right next to it. So it probably was where that higher wall is up there. It probably came over that and then went up into that right here. The rumor for the longest time was it burned. But by research, we've come to find that that is not true. $1 million coaster was basically built on water. It was 3/4 of the way on water. What happened was, over time, the ice buildup in the winter started to warp the frame. And it was actually condemned in 1957. They could not fix it. So it was actually dismantled, and they used the wood, which ironically, the wood to build the $1 million coaster, some of it was taken from Fernbrook Park, which was in Dallas. Sterling had actually bought the old coaster that was there, which was not in operation anymore. He bought the wood there because he needed a lot of wood. This was a giant coaster. And there was a lot of wood shortage because it was in World War II. And so he used pieces of that coaster to build the $1 Million Coaster, and then the $1 Million Coaster was in, parts of that were used to build the Jet Coaster, which was the final one, which was on the hill, which is still up there, which we'll see. It's buried in the ground, but we'll when we get up there, we'll point it out to you where it was and all that stuff. So the biggest killer at Rocky Glen Park was this. Drownings were the biggest cause of death. Nothing else. And it's not that deep where, like around here, but I believe there's parts in the lake where it's very, very deep. But there have been numerous people who had died years upon years of drowning. Adults, kids, you name it.
I wonder if they found out about it.
I don't know.
They were all recovered.
I just stood down.
Jason
Let's go look out. Let's go find out.
Jason goes out like a spider in each direction to hold it from falling. That's actually what that is. It's actually, you can see some of the pieces sticking up from the top of it. But the $1 Million, it did not actually go on the land. It only went partially on the land on the way out and was actually completely on a dock on the way back. So that's why the water ruined it so bad, because it wasn't just on dry land. If you look at pictures, it's not going to be a good comparison today, but if you look at the pictures, see how much land is over here?
Yeah.
Well, it's not that big anymore. It's probably like this now. Okay.
These
But
are
see,
these are the Laurel
yeah,
line tracks.
that's the Laurel line tracks. But see how this is on over water.
Okay.
It goes up just a little bit, and you're already into the supports.
Yeah.
This is completely over water. See how it turns out here? But then this is the train tracks for the train. Went around here and turned in. But the return is actually over water and on the dock as well. So it was not on land, which is what ultimately gave its demise. It built in a bad spot. I remember in 1945 they didn't have Thompson's water seal and that kind of stuff. You know, so they didn't have pressure treated lumber. They were trying to get any kind of lumber. Now in the 50s, 60s, this is where the duck used to come down. Yep. Straight in and right into the water.
That part we remember.
Which was basically an amphibious boat. Like it was a thing, and then it could go in water
Like the
as
duck
well.
tours.
Yeah,
Like a hovercraft.
Yeah.
We were way before our times.
Yeah. Well, that's probably what interests me about the Glen so much, is that by the time I was a kid, you know, the coaster they had was already 30 years old.
Right.
You know, and they didn't really add anything else like they do today.
Right.
Every 3 years there's a new coaster in the park. They had the same coaster for 30 years, which I think was partly because a part of their demise. But
They have down here like the kiddie boats.
There was
the bumper boats actually used to be right next to the dance hall. There was a roped off area.
right by the
Right.
beach.
And they were the ones that were at Knoebels until
Okay.
the Knoebels was dismantled them,
Like
if
trying
you
to
will,
remember that
for
far
their
back.
new coaster.
Right.
In the 80s, this was a like a rocket ride that went up and down. By the before that, the earliest I can tell, this is where the heyday was, and the heyday was almost like a roller coaster car that basically spun around almost like a tilt-a-whirl. It used to be down just a little bit farther, and then they moved it to this point here, and then they built the Dodgems building was erected. Actually went over the alleged little. It was actually helped and went up over the wall. There's actually video. So I might be able to cue it really quick to show you.
Yeah,
Where it went over the wall.
this would be a good place to put pictures.
Video.
Yeah, I have video.
Close right there.
So
Yeah, it was
I'm going to zoom to that point where it's at.
So I never did roller coasters. I like looking at them, but I don't do them.
Let me see.
Oh wow.
Okay, that's it coming around this way. Okay. Now there's this is a teaser video that was on YouTube. That's it going up the hill. So you'd be looking at that right over there, going over the hill. That's it coming around the turn on the backside of the lake. But there, I don't remember how the fast forward is. But there's a spot where it shows people walking.
Now you mentioned a couple bugs down there by the entrance to the $1 million coaster. Caterpillar. Okay.
Sorry, yeah, Caterpillar
Right.
was the thing that came
Okay.
out.
Wow.
You know, had definitely had a lot of people at one time. So that would be just back where we were standing, right over there,
Right.
Wow.
where they're taking the
I still believe in that there is others. Pick it up.
That looks like wood.
It is? And what does it say?
Burnt too.
Oh, really? Something's on the
Down the
bottom.
bottom.
Oh yeah.
Here, keep
Winter Wonderland it says.
What? It does. Winter Wonderland. What is that?
right now. See that big metal thing
Yeah.
right in the background? That was actually a swing ride that was here in the early parts of the century, and then over time they removed it, but didn't take the pole down. The pole was actually there until the park closed, way later. And I want to see if I can get a better picture. Yes.
I don't even remember it.
Yeah.
I probably never paid attention.
It was, no, it was gone. Well, I'm sorry. The pole, it was always there. You never paid attention to it because it just was there. It was no ride. It was
Yeah.
had nothing to it.
Like a electrical pole.
Yeah, that's what I kind of thought it was, just for like airplanes or something like that. But it was actually a part of an old ride that they had here, which I want to try to see if I can find that one picture. I should put these in order of the path that we take so that I can find it a lot easier. But it had literal planes on it, like you sat in it and spun around in a circle. And then later on, they actually made a second plane ride, which I still have a hard time trying to find here. But oh, here it is. This is the old. You can see the plane ride here on the side.
paper.
See the plane right here? So we're standing about probably where that guy is standing right now in that picture. So the swings just hung down and take me here and then go home.
Right.
So he would leave me here on the weekends.
Right.
Give me $100.
Right.
Say, yeah. Now as a kid, you don't realize that. You don't care.
No.
You just put $100 in your pocket and say,
Right.
yeah, go ahead. Not that my dad was, mean or anything like that.
Right.
But when you get older and you realize that, hey, that's what he was doing. He was just giving me money to get away from me.
Right.
So as a joke, in a strange twist, I always say Rocky Glen is my father.
Right. I
Because
get it.
it was my babysitter.
Right.
and,
Right.
I would never argue that, but that's why Rocky Glen has is a part of me,
Right.
and always will be, even though it's not here anymore.
Exactly.
It's like going to see a grave on Christmas. That's kind of what this
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
But I never knew the real history of it. I knew it was just an amusement park. And
Right.
then, when the internet came, and then you could start looking up stuff and deeds and everything like that, you find out that there's like way more than you ever expected. Like I had heard when I was a kid, my great aunt told me, oh, they used to have a roller coaster over the lake. I'm like, oh, come on.
Right.
She's just saying that just to say it. So why would they get rid of something that went over the lake? It doesn't make any sense.
Right.
But then I found pictures of it, and of course I was blown away that, hey, this was unbelievable. And then
Find out more.
I found another coaster, and I'm like, well, wait a minute. They think that this coaster is the same coaster. It's actually two different coasters. Then I come to find out there's actually 4 coasters that are actually in the park itself. So, I mean, there were smaller ones here and there, but they had 4 major coasters in the end. And you know, it was just fascinating to learn. It's like learning something about your family you didn't know.
Right.
Like, oh my God, they had all these, and
Yeah.
I was oblivious to it the whole time. So. All right, so trying to get my bearings where we're at. That was the merry-go-round there. That was the dark. What do you call it?
Now the Golden Nugget was right around here, right?
Golden Nugget was over here. I believe you wanted to walk down the midway. This is, I believe, the midway right here.
Oh, where all the games were?
Yep. Now again, there's a lot of stone here because stuff was pushed over.
Right.
So it's not literally exactly everything
Wherever
everywhere it used to
anything
be.
was.
But this was the pathway where the Golden Nugget was here,
Tried to pull right down there
and
from
this
my-
side was where the games were.
Okay.
Now, in the early parts of Rocky Glen, they had a dance pavilion which was down there, which we'll talk about on the Nail and Jennings side. They built this area right here, which is the round part right here, was originally the carousel.
Okay.
What they did was they moved the carousel from here to the other spot where it eventually was. This then just became a dance hall when that building closed. And then later on, and this is where some of you might remember, it became a bingo hall.
Yep.
And then after bingo, it became an arcade by the 70s and 80s. And that's what it ended up being.
Yeah.
This was the park office. Or later on, it had a bar and it was called the Hearthstone later on. But it had a restaurant on the bottom floor. And then Sterling, you know, even late when the place collapsed in the late 90s, his safe was still in here because it was so big they couldn't move it. It was bolted to the ground, and so it was here forever. And I don't see it anymore, and I don't remember seeing it last year. But somebody must have gotten rid of it, or probably sold it for money. But this was a big office. Obviously, you can see there's seats. This is where we took our group picture last year. It was on the seats here. And then this was the walkway in between the Sky Ride and the Golden Nugget Casino. Obviously, there's not much left of it. It's, you know, it's got its stone steps in there. The building itself, I believe, started like up there. This was like an outer rim, if you will, like an outdoor deck. Now, the old entrance to the park, the Laurel line was over here. Going in from this side here. The queue for the mountain dips was on this side. The train entrance was over here. By the 80s, it actually became kiddie rides. This was like kiddie land here. Obviously, you can see the kiddie pool is still there, not intact, but it's still in the ground. There were a lot of kid rides on this side. Teacups were here. A lot of random, you know, carnival rides were all along here. Walking along this path, which is it's a little hairy on the side, so we usually don't walk up there. But when you would walk up here, the entrance for the Laurel line was over here. That was the main park entrance. It had more kiddie rides up this way. The Mountain Dips entrance was over here. You know, when the Mountain Dips was closed, I believe the Rocket was put in around 1940. It's about the same time that we think the coaster was dismantled. The Rocket was put in. This area used to have very old 1950 rides, like Love in the Dark, like those kind of rides like that.
Funhouse, I think, was over here.
I'm sorry?
Funhouse?
Funhouse, well, there's a couple iterations of the Funhouse. The one that I can determine is actually over there, which we'll talk about when we go over there. I heard that there was a second one that they built later on after that one burned in 1950. They built a second one in this area, but I've never been able to say that's it right there and
Yeah,
point
it's
it
right
out.
next to the level of the dark.
I'm thinking of Love in the Dark.
Yeah, it might be the same thing. They could have over time changed its appearance, changed its name to keep it fresh. You know what I mean? Yeah, this was basically the park office for intents and purposes. It was a house, you know, it had a restaurant downstairs.
There's a weird.
In over here, a mini golf where the Pippin was, and I'm not sure what they had put over there. I think it was
I remember a go-kart track.
go-kart track. That was later on in the 80s.
Yeah.
And then after the mini golf basically died out, you know, you got to switch it up.
Right.
They put the antique cars in here. And the antique car tracks are actually still here. You know, we're actually going to walk one of the paths down to the lower lot where basically the tour ends. But so the Pippin was here. There are no remains on this side of the park. However, last year I traced it because I have a 1939 flyover of the park.
Okay.
I tracked where its remains would have been, and I did find pieces of it still intact. So it does exist. It is buried on the other side of Rocky Glen Road. Me and Jay are actually going to walk over and film after this just to point out where it's at.
What you have.
But yeah, there's barely any remains, obviously.
And I think
Yeah. Watch that thing. Now we got a duck.
Actually, we want to shift over this way and go down.
You didn't want the juice in that too.
I always forget that's the path we want to fall down, but we never find it.
Yeah. There's the path mark.
Yeah, we want to get on this path. That's the path we want to go on. But this is This was a support, and the support was down here near the creek because when the water would get too high, they probably need a support that could withstand water coming through. It appears to be too big to move, so it most likely is probably a part of that roller coaster.
That's man-made too. There's a hole in the bottom there.
Yeah. Well, a lot of this stuff here, it looks like it's been pushed over the years and may have been bulldozed over time. Like I see there's a bunch of holes up there with a lot of concrete, which we'll go take a look at in a second. But I don't see any supports other than this. I don't see any supports sticking up. Again, they could have been washed away for years. We're talking about a 95-year-old roller coaster that's been gone since 1940 about. I'm sure there's been enough floods in here to wash a lot of stuff away, but you would think there'd still be some supports of other wood or metal somewhere, but this is definitely, there was nothing else down here in this area other than the roller coaster, and these metal things sticking out of here, they're basically almost just telling you that they're man-made and they were a part of sport somehow.
Yeah, this piece of wood is held on there as those rods go through it.
Now, I walked through the woods on the other side and I didn't see anything that gave any kind of indication of where it was.
You think there'd be a few of those scattered around here?
Yeah, you would think there'd be something somewhere. Like, see, there's a wall right there, and you know that could have been part. But again, so much stuff has been pushed over the years. So these stone things over here, they look a little different. You know, they're, see how those triangles, or I'm sorry, squares are carved in?
Mm-hmm.
They look like they were in the ground and they were holding supports. So I'm going to walk up here.
There's lots of them here.
There's a lot here. I don't know, like that, there's a piece of metal right there. What's
Yeah.
that,
It's sticking out of the concrete here.
is it out of the concrete?
It's inside of it, like. Ah, it's loose.
And that's definitely a part of something. Now see this over here. This has got wood inside of it. So that's a clear indicator that this was underground at one time and the support was actually inside that. So that's definitely some of these might be remnants of that were in the ground at one time, but have been bulldozed from the top side where it was up near the Laureline entranceway. They may have been bulldozed over time. These things may exist still in the ground on the other side. We just can't see them because they've just been covered over with dirt. But just the way that that's got wood sticking out of it, that's a clear indicator that wood must have been in it at one time to be a support. I mean, look how deep the support goes. You know, and being near water, you know, that would make sense. It needed right here. Obviously, there's wood coming out of that one. You know, most likely, the only other possibility is that these are, I think the metal posts are probably left over from the Laureline station. And these posts with the squares in them with wood in them are posts from the actual coaster. Obviously the wood is long gone, but so I think we're seeing a mixture of posts from the coaster and posts from the Laureline station. I'm pretty sure. It's probably
nice to
a
find
mixture
a
of both.
blueprint, wouldn't it? That would be sweet.
They're probably out there because, you know, even Rocky Glen jet coaster has got a twin sister out in Ohio, and they used the plans to build it. They just reversed them. Yeah, this is good. I mean, these are definitely. I think that we're seeing parts of the Laureline station here, but I think that there's too many of these that are square to not be a part of the coaster. The one I found last year. See it? Bolted together. That's a part of the railing that went along the obviously it's deteriorated, but I didn't pick it up that much because I didn't want to destroy it, but you can see that's
Definitely old hardware.
it's part of the wood because you can see the double wood here is a common practice on roller coasters to
Make them longer.
keep them together. Obviously this part's been long gone, but this trough here that we're in and the metal that's up here, it looks like it got pushed in and then it's been eroded by water over time. And that's why you can see metal from the coaster sticking up over here. So let's move up just a little bit.
Like, is this thing we're on now? It looks like it might have been older.
This was about where the turnaround was. It's in here somewhere. But you can see there's the metal of the coaster. It was kept bulldozed underground and it's been unearthed just because of erosion, no doubt. And most likely these are the metal rails that went along the wood track. The wood could have already rotted away and dissipated.
Wire is probably, you know, tension point.
This is definitely what it rode on.
So most likely what happened, it was bulldozed into the ground and buried underneath everything. The turnaround is here somewhere. Where exactly it is, it's not sure, but it's probably in this area. This path is most likely the path of the return route.
So no pylons over here?
None I've been able to find. Like there's a piece of wood sticking up there. That looks like.
I see metal there too.
Oh, yeah. There's a piece of metal there.
Yeah. There's more metal over there.
Yep. They didn't actually even go on this side last year.
There's more right here sticking out.
There. Yeah, this is definitely remnants of it. This is probably the other side that came before the turnaround.
With the
Metal in it? That's definitely a post. Definitely a remain. Actually more than I saw last time I was here.